hit a little tent. Oh, just like that river. I've been running ever since. It's been a long, 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 long time coming. Yeah, that a change is gonna come. Too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't you hang around. It's been a long, long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Too hard living, I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long, 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 long time. But I know the change gonna come.
Hello and welcome to the third annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. I am Michael Allen, a senior in political science and a senior on the football field. And I'm also from Dallas, Texas.
And I'm Talon Starkey. I'm also a senior political science major, and I'm from McAlester, Oklahoma. Before we begin, I would like to point out that Dr. King's March on Washington and I Have a Dream speech occurred in 1963. The year 2013 represented the 50th year anniversary of these historic events. That's why we decided to do our Civil Rights March and a reenactment of the Dream speech today.
Now, with further notice, I would like to welcome the ECU President, John Hargrave, to the stage to welcome the campus.
Thank you so much, and thank all of you for coming to the third annual Martin Luther King Day. What are we here for? What are we celebrating? Are we celebrating Martin Luther King? I think it's much broader. I think we're celebrating and remembering the times and the purpose and the reason Dr. King ultimately sacrificed his life for what was then called the movement by some called the struggle. If you read the newspapers, you read about bombings, innocent children and people killed. And what for? Am I talking about Baghdad? Am I talking about Afghanistan? Am I talking about the Shiite and the Sunni? And we're sitting here saying, oh my gosh, people would bomb you because you choose to be a Sunni as opposed to a Shiite? No. I'm talking about Birmingham, Alabama. 80 bombings in one summer. On September of '63, 50 years ago, the 16th Avenue Baptist Church blew up during Sunday school on September 15th, 1963. 4 little girls were killed. Terrible tragedy. But out of that tragedy came momentum for the movement. Many white people in the United States at that moment said, enough is enough. This is ridiculous. And the civil rights movement that had stalled took off again. And ultimately, the very next year, Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. In the meantime, Dr. King had been shot and killed. John Kennedy had been shot and killed. It was a tough time to be in the United States of America. And now here we are 50 years later, and most of you are so young, you're thinking, man, that is ancient history. I was in the 3rd grade. I was sitting in a segregated classroom when this was told to us. I rode an integrated bus. My next door neighbor couldn't go to school with me, but he could sit on the bus. And then we stopped at the black school and he got off and I went to the white school. When we went to the movie theater, he sat in the balcony because black kids were not allowed to sit downstairs. So it wasn't that long ago, and looking back on it, doesn't it seem ridiculous that we let the color of somebody's skin, a pigmentation issue, let us get so full of hate, so full of venom, we were willing to kill 4, 11, 12, 13, and 14-year-old little girls. Why do we have Martin Luther King Day? Yeah, we want to remember Martin Luther King. But we need to be reminded of 2 things. Number 1, we will never go back to that place in this country. And we're not going to let anybody take us back. And number 2, we still got work to do. We've come a long way. We're not there yet. You all know that. We got work to do, and that's why you're here today. Because we are celebrating the movement. We're celebrating an important chapter in the United States history, and we're celebrating the fact that we've learned our lesson and we're moving on. Thank you very much. Enjoy MLK Day at ECU.
Next on the program is Wendell Reese. Wendell is from Seminole, Oklahoma. He just graduated from East Central University in December. He is the former vice president of the Association of Black Students. He was also the equipment manager for the East Central football team. Wendell was a vital part of the Tiger football program, and he was just hired as an assistant defensive line coach at Shawnee High School. Wendell is the first grandson in his family to graduate college, as well as the first person on his mother's side to graduate. Wendell is going to tell us what Dr. King means to him.
Y'all bear with me, I'm a little bit nervous, so, if I start to stutter, just, don't pay attention to that. Like I said, my name is Wendell Reese, from Seminole, Oklahoma. I just graduated college, thank God. No more money will be coming out of my pocket. So, like I said, I just graduated, I was able to get a coaching job, and I'm very thankful for that. I want to thank East Central, Dr. Pappas, Talon for giving me a call to be able to express what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. means to me. I want to start with a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes by him, and I'm sure it's one of his more well-known quotes. It says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." Growing up, I was born in the 90s, which, I'm obviously sure it wasn't as bad as the 50s, 60s, and 70s. My father told me that, son, when you get out in the real world, you're gonna see hate that you've never seen before. You've been under our wing for all these years, but when you get out there, because of the things you do and because of who you are, you're gonna see hate like no other. My dad telling me that. My dad's a little overprotective anyway. So listening to him say that, I thought, that's not gonna happen to me. Just like everybody else says, it's not gonna happen to them. I experienced it more than what I thought I would. I've been called names that I never should hear anybody be called. And, it was hurtful, but I realized that my father had it worse, and his father had it worse. And I realized what he mean and what to protect me, and what he wanted to protect me from. I understand I don't fully understand, but I understand some of the things that they went through. Like I said, it wasn't half as near as bad as what they went through, though. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even though we regard him as one of the greatest men to ever live, during that time, he was probably one of the most hated people to ever live. Mainly because he was an agent of change. When people see change and they don't fully understand change, they will hate it, and they will hate you for trying to change things, trying to change their happy little world that they've been so accustomed to. To me, he was a symbol of courage. An unbelievable man that had hell at his front door, but he didn't stray or fall away because he had God at his side. And I mean, that spoke to me, and that meant so much to me, because if he can get through what he got through, then we should be able to get through anything. We shouldn't have no worries about the things that we encounter because of what he got through. That's one of the main reasons that I was glad to be able to speak that today. To me, he's also a symbol of love and passion and forgiveness. Another one of his famous quotes: "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of power to forgive is devoid of the power of love. There is good in the worst of us, and there is evil in the best of us. We must be less prone to hate our enemies. And no matter what you have going on, no matter what you're going through, no matter how much someone has wronged you, you must forgive them so you can be forgiven." That's another thing that spoke out to me as I was writing this too. And then lastly, in my eyes, he is a symbol of hope. Hope that we will not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our heart. Hope that we as a society will not judge what the media displays or portrays. Hope that one day we will let the waters of hatred and bigotry flow under the bridge of love and forgiveness. Hope that one day black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual: free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Now as I bring to the stage Dr. Lorraine Lattimore, who is an assistant professor of sociology here at ECU. She's originally from Hugo, Oklahoma, and holds degrees from the University of Oklahoma, Washington State University, North Carolina State University. North Carolina State University. And now let's all give a hand for Dr. Lorraine Lattimore.
To President Hargrave, other members of the ECU and ADA community, as well as to our visiting family and friends, I greet you and say good morning. Good morning. I was actually a little surprised by that. I thought he was just going to say my name, and I turned around and I said, who gave him all of that information? I stand before you to help celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. For me, this is a very special time in which we can recognize and reflect upon the many milestones, contributions, and achievements made by Dr. King. And when I think of Dr. King, I think of a man who helped to break down barriers, who fought injustices, inequalities, and human suffering, and who struggled to make or take a place in our nation and in the world. And due to his courageous efforts, that means you and I, as individuals, as a community, and as a nation, have been able to overcome and triumph in many ways. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. forever changed American history. Despite his significant efforts and progress, there is much work to be done. I am here today to challenge you to not only remember the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but to live the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I want to encourage you to take pride in your life every day and not just the national holiday which was celebrated yesterday and not just today. To remember and rededicate yourselves. So perhaps you are wondering, I'm just one person. What can I do to really make a difference? First, acknowledge the problem exists and do something about it. Some of you who are Bible scholars may remember the familiar passage that says faith without works is dead. In essence, what that means is that without action, your faith goes nowhere. You may have those beliefs, but until you act upon it, it goes nowhere. Also, pay attention. Be open to the idea that what you think you know is wrong or is so deeply embedded within daily life practices that you may not see reality. A famous anthropology noted, the last thing that a deep sea fish is likely to notice is the water. Because we are so accustomed and so familiar with the status quo and the way that things go each and every day, oftentimes we do not think about or even imagine an alternative that is more equitable and more just. Educate yourself, read, watch, listen, but be critical consumers of the information that you receive. Develop a critical consciousness. One of the other things that has already been mentioned that Dr. Martin Luther King did was make people uncomfortable. I'm challenging you to make people uncomfortable. In his short lifespan, Dr. King made many people uncomfortable. He challenged the status quo. He rejected the paths of least resistance. I challenge you to make people uncomfortable, but do it in productive ways. Don't just get on people's nerves. Get on their nerves in a way that will make a difference for you and the lives of others and the community in which it is that you live. Stand up against injustices. Speak up in defense of human dignity. Challenge your allies as well as your family and friends. For example, the next time that you hear a racist, sexist, homophobic, or elitist joke or comment, what will you do? Will you laugh and only be heard by your laughter, or will you stand up and speak out, letting them know that that joke or that comment really wasn't all that funny? When you notice discrimination and circles of exclusion, what will you do? Will you remain content with being a part of the in crowd, or will you speak out and stand up and advocate for equality and inclusion for all? When you see someone who is sad, hurt, or hungry, what will you do? Will you tell them that you will pray for them later and then don't? Or will you talk with them, provide them with some food, find help, find someone who can help them heal the hurt? Will you remain silent, or will you stand up, speak out, and take action to make a difference? Living a life that honors the legacy of Dr. King requires that you and I do more than simply participate in today's activities. Each and every day, we need to stand up and speak out, refuse to be silent. We can all volunteer. We can all write letters to our representatives. We can sign petitions, and we can work with other people who feel passionate about the same cause. Dr. King let his life ignite a fire in you. Then use your time, your talents, and your resources to champion the cause and challenge others to do the same. Figure it out and figure out how you can make a difference. And to quote Nike, just do it. Remember, there is a price to progress. Along with Martin Luther King Jr., many people, they lost their lives. They were jailed, they were beaten, lynched, and killed so that I could stand here today, but also so that you can enjoy some of the freedoms and privileges that you have. How many people, however, many people want the prize without paying for it. Martin Luther King Jr., he gave his service and his life. The question I ask you, what price are you willing to pay? While we stood today in the cold, don't let that discourage you. Dr. Martin Luther King, he faced cold attitudes, and he faced water, and he faced heat, but don't let that discourage you. Again, to you Bible scholars, there's a scripture that reads, "To much is given, much is required." So whatever it is that you choose to do, remember the only thing that will ensure nothing changes is if you do nothing. So to go back to the question that I began with, what can you do to really make a difference? Stand up, speak out, Challenge small things, everyday little jokes and comments, what we think are little jokes and comments, and challenge the big things, laws and practices as well. So challenge small and big injustices. Because as Dr. Martin Luther King simply stated from a jail cell, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Ray Davis is a local blues legend. Today, he is joined by ECU's own Rudy Lipinski. So please welcome Ray Davis and Rudy Lipinski to the stage.
I do the things I do for you just because, just because. My love is never ending too, just because, just because. And in these tough times, I know God will see us through, just because. And I love you, just because. Letting go is so hard to do, just because, just because. There's so many things in life we desire to do, just because, just because. Sometimes you gotta close the door before you can start something new, just because. I love you, just because. And I love you, just because. This one right here, and it's like rising above. This is about kind of what this whole thing is about, rising above things, situations. Your life journey throws us a lot of curves and turns, and bridges that we once walked on, they come up burned. Burdens that seem way too hard to bear. Got bad things going on around us, and it seems like no one cares. Just like the eagle who uses the storm to fly high, way up high, where it's safe and warm. No use crying when the milk's gone bad. Sometimes you gotta lose it before wanna cry sometimes, but I just can't find the tears. I've been carrying that stuff around for years and years and years. But now when times get tough, I just say me a little prayer. 'Cause I have come to believe that someone hears me out there. Hey, hey, just like the eagle who uses the storm to fly way up high, where it's safe and warm. No use crying, no, 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 when the milk's gone bad. Sometimes you gotta lose it before you realize what you had. Sometimes you gotta lose it before you realize what you had. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us on the sky. Imagine all people living for today. You they say I'm a dreamer. Hey, I know I'm not the only one. I hope someday that you'll join us. Yeah, this world will live as one. Imagine there's no countries, didn't know what to do, nothing to kill or die for, no religion to no. Imagine all people living in this world in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer. Hey, no, I'm not the only one. I hope someday that you will join us. Hey, hey, this world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you even can. No more green No, I'm not the only one. I hope someday that you join us. Oh, this world will live as one.
Please welcome members of the Tiger Speech and Debate team and their interpretation of the I Have a Dream speech. The director of the Tiger Speech and Debate Program is Donna Graves. The performers are Wyatt Freeman, Diamond King, Rachel Hayes, Chevette Thompson, Angelina Thierry, Barbara Thierry, Billy Gladden, and Amber Wright.
50 years ago, a great American signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end their long night of captivity.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself exiled in his own home.
In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned.
Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check that has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the banks of justice are bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there is insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of the nation. And so we have come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. And so, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state swirling with the heat of injustice, swirling with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification.
One day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as brothers and sisters. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, and the rough places made plain, and the crooked places made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of a mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
And this will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, the land of the pilgrim's pride.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops in New Hampshire.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Let freedom ring from the highland Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado.
Let freedom ring from the gracious slopes of California.
Not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia.
Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up the process when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual.
Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Thank you. Now we have a selection by the ECU Gospel Choir. The choir is under the direction of Dr. Melody Baggage.
Finally, I would like to introduce Chelsea Baker, Instructional Services Librarian and ECU Human Diversity Committee Chair, to present the 2014 Martin Luther King Awards.
Thank you, Talon, and thank you all for being here. President Hargrave talks often about how outstanding our students are here at East Central, and the awards that we're presenting today are designed to recognize those outstanding students. The two awards that I'm presenting today on behalf of the Human Diversity Committee are intended to recognize those bright, selfless students who support and exemplify Dr. King's ideals day in and day out. This is our third year administering these awards, and this year we're fortunate because the ECU bookstore has graciously donated $50 gift certificates to each of our winners. We're so pleased to be able to offer those gift certificates. So thank you to Nikki McEwen and the ECU bookstore for that. Now, the Spirit of MLK Service and Leadership Award recognizes a student who shows leadership skills both in the classroom and in the community, and recognizes a student who is a respectful, law-abiding person who jumps at the chance to serve others at every opportunity without expecting anything in return. The recipient of this award is nominated by a member of the ECU faculty or staff. This year's winner is Corey Scott, a senior communication and performance studies major, and he was nominated by Dr. Kurt Edwards. Let's welcome them both to the stage.
Let me just say a couple of words on Corey's behalf, and he might have something to say as well. We all know A, B, C, D, right? As the first four letters that we learned, it also can stand for above and beyond the call of duty. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of these people, and I don't want to put Corey on that pedestal, but I do want to say that the man here standing beside me is one of these A, B, C, D people. He is above and beyond the call of duty. I'm reminded of a bit that Chris Rock does, where he talks about there are some people in the world who just want to be rewarded for doing what they're supposed to do. Corey Scott isn't one of those people. He goes above and beyond the call of duty. My nomination for him was an easy choice. When I received the email, my mind immediately went to Corey Scott. The man has done a lot and continues to do a lot. For one, he is a father of 3. He is the husband of 1, I think. He's directed the play Doubt for us last semester as an undergraduate. He is the editor of the ECU Journal. He is an Irene Ryan American College Theater Festival nominee. And the list goes on and on and on and on. And not only that, he's a wonderful person to have in the classroom with me. So on behalf of everybody here and myself, I want to personally congratulate you on all that you've done and this award that you really, really deserve.
Those of you who know me know that I like to ramble and I like to talk, but today I'm kind of at a loss for words. Quite simply, I don't feel that I deserve this, but I'm going to try to live up to it. Thank you.
The MLK Essay Award asks students to discuss either Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s triple evils or his 6 principles of nonviolence. This year's winner of the MLK Essay Award is Anthony Dickinson, a senior legal studies major, for his essay, The Tao of Nonviolence. Anthony will now read a short excerpt of his essay for us.
Dr. King's 5th principle of nonviolence states that one should avoid committing spiritual violence as well as physical violence. This part of Dr. King's philosophy emphasizes his view that we should not hate those who commit violence toward us. Hate only perpetuates the cycle of evil. We should instead treat them with acceptance, understanding, and love. The love that Dr. King speaks of is not of a sentimental nature, but one of understanding and goodwill, without the expectation of personal gain. Dr. King says it best himself in Stride Toward Freedom: the best way to assure oneself that love is disinterested is to have love for the enemy neighbor from whom you can expect no good in return, but only hostility and persecution. In doing this, we will be freeing ourselves from the cycle of hate. This would seem like an impossible struggle, but according to Dr. King, this is not done alone. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now please join me once again in thanking everyone who submitted entries for the awards, thanking the ECU bookstore, and congratulating our winners.